If you will excuse me, Osrith managed, kicking over her stool as Griogr made another attempt to finger her. I must rejoin my friends. She strode across the floor, faltering a little as she remembered Tagd's face when she had belittled him. She wheeled round, her face flushing hot. Go to the stable, she told herself. But Tagd had seen her and was calling her over, as if their crosswords that evening had never been. Osrith. Join us. We know a song about an Isil, he sang. Iora. Iora. Fergus added, sitting up on the table, then burping loudly. Fergus continued. I have a joke, an Anglish joke. How many Gaelish horses do we all need? He pointed around at the table at the Pictish warriors, Tagd and her. One each. Yuanst finished, laughing uproariously. One each. He repeated. Osrith smiled but shook her head. No, thank you. Tagd's face fell. He looked crestfallen. You're going so soon? One of us must be going. With him? Tagd looked past her, and Osrith turned to see Griogr standing just behind her, hands on hips. No, she declared, stepping around Griogr. Alone. Tagd dipped his head and stepped over Fergus's legs, making to follow her, but Griogr was striding after her, and out into the chill of the early winter night. Osrith. He pushed past Griogr, as Osrith turned to look at her friend, but the leader of the MacGriogrs put out a hand, pushing Tagd to the floor. Before Osrith could protest, Bué half unscabarded, a figure appeared between the two men. Allow me. Prince Domhnall. Osrith exclaimed, never before so pleased to see anyone in her life. He put out a hand to Tagd, who looked between Griogr and Osrith. I can escort Osrith, he declared. Please, rejoin the feast. Domhnall held Tagd's eye for a second, and the tall warrior nodded, walking gingerly over the damp earth. Griogr. Aye, if you are sure, he added, looking at Osrith. Prince Domhnall can walk with me, she confirmed, and Domhnall's ally returned, with more care than Tagd, to the hall. Domhnall and Osrith walked the short way to the stables in silence. He kept pace with her, arms by his sides, and made no attempt to touch her, as he had done at Glenorchy. Yet, Osrith wanted to grab Domhnall, demand that he tell her if it was he who would accompanying them to Caeligwylad, to the court of the Cuthbert-chosen Cumbrian king. Domhnall had said more. But, equally, she did not want to know, if it was not him. Breaking from a quiet contemplation of his own, Domhnall pulled at the door of the stable for her, but it appeared to be locked. Locked from the inside. Constantine. Osrith cursed. What do you mean? Domhnall's eyes were on her, and to Osrith it seemed for a moment that Domhnall thought she had got him confused with his cousin. When Constantine was angry I wouldn't play, or we had to get him to do something he didn't like. He would play tricks on me, Osrith recounted, assessing the stable for access points, lock me out of the castle or steal my food. Dirty a floor it cleaned or pass a false message from me. She sighed. I wonder what he thinks I have done now. Then Osrith smiled. There was an open shutter, and she pointed. I can climb up for you, Domhnall offered. But Osrith shook her head, and despite twinges from her ribs began to scale the trunk of what was once a pine tree and was now one of 4 supports of a lean-to where Anairon's horses had the luxury of a farrier. No more than a few feet up, and Domhnall, who had been watching Osrith shin unsteadily upwards, exclaimed, It was you. In Armagh. Osrith looked lone, then jumped back to the damp grass. Domhnall's face was animated, with a long-ago memory. We were asked to search, and I saw someone dash to the kitchens. Then I remember how you jumped from the Uationa. Yes, Osrith nodded. I climbed when I heard Don Chada with someone. You told me it was Domhnall. Domhnall nodded. Then, Osrith saw his shoulders dip, and she extended a hand to his arm. I thought I could form an alliance, but I was very mistaken. He glanced over his shoulder. Domhnall has been the best at forging an alliance in support of himself. Just look at his supporters, from all over Alba. Even the Strathclydians have found that some amongst them cannot tolerate Eochaid with his kingmaker Giric. You could have, I am sure, said Osrith, her head nagging her to get it down on the straw as soon as possible. You're waiting for your moment to make your claim, and in the meantime, you search for your sister. Domhnall took a step from Osrith, her hand falling away. He looked at her as if he was about to say something else, then nodded slowly, turning and striding off in the direction of the hall. Osrith wanted to call out her thanks for his consideration to walk with her, but he was too far away. So instead, Osrith looked up to the sloping roof of the farrier's quarters and began to climb towards the shuttered window.